So what SolarFax does is we transform energy consumption and solar production data into valuable insights that can impact your business in a number of ways. The first is we can help you strengthen customer confidence in your recommendations using seasonal, hourly, and time of use insights. This is more impactful and more insightful than what you can gain by looking at a stack of power bills or dumping a CSV of consumption data into an Excel spreadsheet. We're going to help you show you how you can unlock sales opportunities within your existing customer base. These are folks you've already done business with. They've already built trust, and you want to develop ongoing relationships and bring new energy solutions to them. We're going to show you how you can turn energy monitoring into a recurring revenue and also even a lead generation engine. And then finally, we're going to show you how you can use this data to optimize your service business by giving you information that you need prior to sending out a service technician, maybe even avoiding a truck roll because it's something you could resolve over the phone. So the first step in our process is our energy audit report. So once you've acquired the customer's consumption data, you can use this as part of your discovery process. So you think of this as your pre-proposal assessment. It's going to give you information you can't get from a power bill. It's going to paint a picture of how this customer is consuming energy. It's going to give you patterns and trends, and it's going to help you ask better questions, right? You're going to see things even before you meet with your customer that are going to point out the things that are driving their energy consumption, whether it's summertime and it's air conditioning related, or maybe the energy efficiency of their home, or if it's wintertime, home heating, EV charging, all the things that we know are in causing customers to use more electricity as time goes on. So after we start by taking an overview of the entire year, and then we start unpacking each season. So this example I'm showing you here is the summer. And the first thing we do is we take a typical summer month. In this case, we're looking at July, and we show you all the total consumption for each day over every day in that month. And we overlay it with weather data because we're looking for correlations between high temperatures and energy consumption. That would indicate, obviously HVAC inefficiencies or maybe insulation, and it helps you have conversations with your customer about helping them understand, well, what's driving your energy consumption. We also will look at that entire month by the hour. So this middle graph is showing us the energy consumption spikes that occur over the course of the month. We can see, well, when do they occur, right? Is it happening overnight, in the middle of the night? Maybe that's EV charging, and we can tell based upon how much energy is being used, whether it's likely to be an electric vehicle. We can see, is it tied to air conditioning? Is it happening during the peak periods? Is it happening during the middle of the day, right? Again, these are patterns and trends that are going to help paint the picture of this customer's energy profile. The last thing we do, the graph at the bottom, is we take every day during the season. So in this case, it'd be June, July, and August, and we're averaging every hour. And we're going to show you, what does a typical day look like in the summer? What is their typical peak energy consumption? Do they use more energy during the day when the sun is up, which means that the solar is going to be able to take care of those needs? Do they use more energy in the evening after the sun has set, which is going to require more energy storage? So, and then when you sit down and review this with your customer and you start crafting your recommendations, they're going to understand the why behind it, because you're letting their home or their business drive the conversation. And then after the system has been installed, you can use this same report for a post-install assessment. And there's a number of ways that this could be used by different members of your team, different teams within your organization. So we'll start with the service team, and let's use the example of a customer who calls in. Their bill is larger than they were expecting or larger than it's been in the past. And they oftentimes will assume that there's a problem with their solar production. But the reality is that usually the solar is doing what it's supposed to. It's the consumption that has changed in some way. But when you have access to this data, you can very quickly and easily identify that, okay, the solar is producing what it's supposed to. We can see that there's been a change in consumption. Or maybe the consumption hasn't changed and there is in fact something going on with the solar. So, and then before you send out a technician, you have an idea of what's happening. And in some cases, you may realize that this is just a simple inverter communications issue. Maybe you can resolve it over the phone and save that the time of your technician and the cost of sending out that service vehicle. The next members of your team is your sales team could use this. If it's part of your process to reach out periodically to customers, maybe every 90 days during that first year of their solar journey or once per year, we give you this energy audit report, and it becomes a conversation piece. It becomes a way to show the customer that the solar is producing what was proposed, and then ask questions about has anything changed in their household? Have they added an electric vehicle? Are they working from home? Has their family grown? And so rather than just calling and maybe asking for referrals or checking in with the customer, you have something to review with them, a reason to review this with them. And whatever cadence you have of your customer interactions and your follow-ups, this can fit in well with that. The next part of your team is your marketing team. We can put a link on the landing page if you have a landing page for generating leads for your business. Rather than just asking somebody to provide their name and their address and their email address and phone number, you can invite them to connect their data to get a free energy audit report. And what that does for your intake team is rather than just getting a name and an address and a phone number, you end up with a very robust data set, right? You understand how they're consuming energy. And so when you sit down and meet with that customer, you have something to really set yourself up for success with that relationship. And then the last area is if you're trying to build monthly recurring revenue for your business, either maybe a service plan, somebody can get priority scheduling or discounted service work. You can make this a part of that, right? So you have a regular deliverable that is more than just maybe a flyer that you send out. You can actually give them a personalized energy report that can be used to help stimulate additional sales. And then if you're onboarding or taking over the service for systems that were installed by other companies, and if you have an assessment step that you take before taking on that responsibility or that oversight, you can make this report a part of your evaluation of that system before you agreed to make it a part of your service plans. So where does this data come from? Well, we have the energy consumption data comes from the three investor-owned utilities in California, PG&E, Edison, and SDG&E. Some of you may have experienced some issues getting data from PG&E over the past few months. They did implement a multi-factor or two-factor authentication. The API connections we use to get our data are not impacted by a two-factor. In fact, in the case of PG&E, we can get up to 2 years of their hourly or 15-minute data, and all you need is the customer's 11-digit account number and the phone number they have with PG&E. Really, really powerful, very fast, and very efficient. And then on the solar side, there's 5 inverters we can get data for. That's Enphase, Tesla, Q-Cells, SMA, and SolarEdge. So what else can you do with this data besides running these reports? Well, if you're going to be, obviously you're going to do a proposal, right? That's the next step. Use us to acquire the data. If you're selling solar and energy storage in California, you must have that hourly or 15-minute interval data. So we're a way to acquire that data, and then you can export it into the correct format to go into your preferred proposal tool. And there are 4 products that we are compatible with. And if you have a tool that you use that you don't see on this list, we just need to know what the format needs to be, and we can add that. And then we also have 2 direct integrations. One's with Scanify, the other is with Aurora. And what that allows you to do is run your Scanify application from within our product. You don't have to leave your SolarFax environment. You can acquire the interval data, consumption data from us, push it into Scanify or push it into Aurora, generate your layouts and your solar production model, and then you can actually pull that production model back into our program and incorporate it into your analysis. So really, really powerful integrations. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you can use this data to remotely diagnose a system, and in this case, telling the difference between a simple communications problem and an actual system that is off. So If you see on the left, we have the inverter data, which is the yellow, and then imports and exports to and from the grid, which are the red and the green. And on about the 16th of July, you can see that we see no solar production, but we don't see a change in energy being exported to the grid. And if you look on the right, we can actually see the hour that communications issue occurred. But if this customer was looking at their app, they may wake up and see, there's no solar production, or maybe even you get an alert on the portal, and if there's no consumption CTs, which also may be disrupted with the communications problem, you don't really know have the complete picture. But because we have the smart meter data, we can tell that this system is working just fine. That this may be resolved over the phone, or it's a low urgency service call. And you know what you're going to be encountering when you get on site. This next one's a little more complex, but it's really illustrative. So this is a 30-day period by the hour. The yellow is the solar production by the hour each day. Again, the red bars are energy being pulled from the grid, and the green is energy being pushed to the grid. And we can see that on about August 5th, solar production, the data from the inverter went to 0, and we also saw that the exports stopped. So that's a system that was off for about 7 days. We can see that it came back online, but pretty quickly there we could see that the production was only about half of what it was before. So even though the system is back on, it's not producing. So maybe, a string is out, or if it's multiple inverters, maybe one of the inverters is not working. And so on the right, we're unpacking these two data sets. And on the top, it's pretty clear to see, solar production dropped to 0. And then when it resumed, we were only producing about half. But if this was a case where you didn't have access to the inverter data, maybe the inverter doesn't have communications, or it's got an expired cell card, or maybe the customer bought the house and they don't have access to the monitoring, or maybe it's a SunPower system that hasn't been reestablished with the SunStrong monitoring. On the bottom, we can see that with just that utility data, we can tell a lot, almost the same information that we could get if we had the inverter data, where, at some point we stopped and sending energy to the grid. So, solar's off. And then when it finally came back online, the grid exports were only half of what they had been. So really tells the same story with just that smart meter data. The next thing we're going to show you is for cases where there are no inverter communications that I just described, cell card issues, Wi-Fi, non-existent communications, we have an algorithm that allows us to take the smart meter data, the energy pushed and pulled to and from the grid, the weather, and we can build a fairly accurate production model using just that smart meter data. And so this is a system where we actually happen to have the inverter data, so we can illustrate how close we can get. So on the right, we've separated the two. On the top is the actual inverter production data from the inverter API over 12 months, and then on the bottom is what we would estimate if we didn't have access to the inverter data. And this is a great example of how close we can get. We're usually within about 5 to 10%. So in those cases where you're kind of blind as far as the solar production, this can be a valuable insight into how much solar energy we're producing. Again, using just the smart meter data. So the last thing we want to show you, with changes that have occurred in the industry, a lot of companies are pivoting and adapting, taking on new lines of work. Maybe you're getting into energy efficiency solutions or partnering with an HVAC provider. They're not leading with solar as much, or some companies have actually pivoted away from solar a bit, or even just in the name of their business. And so in response to that, we wanted to offer a version of our product that didn't say solar. It's not that we're taking solar out of it. We're helping companies lead with energy solutions, energy efficiency. And then that's where our WattsTrue product, why that came about. It is identical to SolarFax. It's all the same features, all the same functions, the reporting, the API connections, the data, and so forth. But what it allows you to do is lead with energy solutions, energy efficiency. Your salesperson can present themselves as an energy consultant as opposed to being a solar consultant. And so if the capabilities of SolarFax are appealing to you, but you want to lead with energy, we have the WattsTrue product as an option for you. And so to conclude, the data we provide, the insights we provide, and then the two platforms that we have here, SolarFax and WattsTrue, we can really help you position yourself as your customer's long-term energy solutions provider. From giving you a branded portal, where becomes an extension of your business and an extension of your brand, the energy data, the insights, and the reports that we've talked about, the ability to optimize your battery solutions because you have the data, whether they have solar and you're adding storage to that, or they're a net meter customer or a NEM3 customer or somebody looking at solar, for the first time with storage. If you're building a service business and you want to offer monitoring as part of your service package, we have the ability to enable and support that. This can tuck in well with a service plan, recurring revenue plan that you might be offering. And then being able to engage that customer on a periodic basis, quarterly, annually, to review the results of their energy performance, the solar system performance. We bring it all together. So if this is of interest to you, be happy to schedule a discovery call and show you how we can help.